All right, what's going on, everybody? A very happy Thursday. Welcome. It is Pushing the Limits. So glad you could be here. Of course, the YouTube page at PTL Radio Show, ever so growing, passing 146,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. And the AM FM dial, KSHP, Really American Network. We're all over the place, and we appreciate you being a part of the program. And we have a lot to talk about today. So, a YouTuber who has a large following, and he's on the right. What took place at Tennessee State University last week, which were two white conservative activists at a mainly black university with signs that said DEI should be illegal and all illegals should be deported. I thought it was horrible and an abomination. This gentleman thought that it was a good thing. We're going to have a debate over that. We'll talk a little bit about that. And, of course, we have Leonard I almost said Leonard Ellerbe.
Who?
Leonard Ellerbe is Floyd Mayweather's former manager because I've interviewed him before. Leonard Cardinal is here, not Leonard Ellerbe. Leonard, good to see you. How are you?
Good morning. A lot going on, Brian.
A lot going on is right, and I want to get right into it. So, as you know, the Republican Party like to call themselves the party of pro-life. And I've always said they're the opposite of pro-life because once the baby's born, you know, they're basically against every government.
They're pro-birth.
Yeah, exactly. So this just proves it. So Caroline Leavitt held a press conference earlier today, and as you know, her, Trump, Vance, they're blaming all the Democrats for the shutdown, the government shutdown, which is obviously categorically false. And I broke it down yesterday. I'm not going to break it down again today. I told all of you why Republicans are lying and how they're lying, and Democrats don't want health care for every undocumented immigrant. That is a bald-faced lie. I explained it yesterday. I'm not going to go into the details again. However, I want you to listen to the way Caroline Leavitt answered this question because she's asked what I think is a very important one, which is, if you happen to be an undocumented immigrant and you're suffering from, let's just say, a heart attack, or you're bleeding out, something that is very serious that you could lose your life, right? And you're dropped off at the ER. Should we help those people? Now, obviously, in my opinion, if you're any moral compass at all, you say yes immediately, right, Leonard? We would say yes, of course.
Any human being with any compassion at all would say yes.
Of course. Correct. I agree. Listen to the way Caroline Leavitt answered or didn't answer the question. Have a listen to this exchange.
Should ERs check for immigration status before treating a dying patient?
That's probably not a question for me to answer. I think that's a question for healthcare professionals and legal experts to answer.
You understand why I'm asking you? Because Republicans have been saying that Democrats want to give benefits to undocumented immigrants, even though it's against the law for them to get these benefits.
Let me ask you, do you think that illegal aliens should receive Medicaid benefits? Medicaid benefits that go to the most vulnerable people in our country. Medicaid benefits that were designed to help low-income families and Americans in our country.
Notice how she doesn't answer the question. The question wasn't about...
She's conflating Medicaid with services.
The question wasn't about Medicaid being offered to undocumented immigrants across the country. That wasn't the question. The question was actually a very simple one that anybody with a moral compass would answer. And, you know, Caroline Leavitt, she walks around with that cross on her neck, but apparently we don't care about people if they're brown or if they're undocumented, even though they're human beings. The question was, if somebody goes into the ER that happens to be undocumented, that is dying, maybe a heart attack, maybe bleeding out, whatever the case may be, is it the Republican position that we should not help those people?
Like, oh, well, they're just going to have to die, I guess.
That was the question, right?
Right.
That's what I heard. And her answer or response was, well, you'll have to talk to the hospitals about that. First of all, I've never heard anybody at a hospital say, we're not going to treat you for life-threatening issues because you're undocumented. So that's number one. Number two, she says, well, we'll have to, legal people, we'll have to ask legal. It's not a legal issue. It's a human being issue.
Can I give a little background?
Yeah.
So in this state, for example, UMC is a state-run hospital. So they're mandated to take care of everyone, whether they're undocumented, whether they have ID, whether they have insurance. But you know who pays the bill? Once they do that, we do. We pay that bill through taxes. And the government, the federal government, doesn't get involved. But not every hospital has, if it's just a broken arm, for example, not every hospital has to take care of that person. But there are some mandated almost in every state. And so she's taken an issue, or I thought it was a terrible answer. Why doesn't she just answer the question and say, you know what, if the person's dying, yes, you have to take them in and save their life.
But Leonard, the reason why she won't answer the question is because we all know what the answer would be. If MAGA Republicans had it their way, they would not want an undocumented immigrant in this country to get life-saving health care if they're in the ER, because they are not pro-life. They are racist, they are bigots, and they only care about, I'm not even going to say they care about Americans. I think most of them care about Christian white Americans.
They're devoid of compassion.
Yeah.
I'll say it. If you have a dying person that walks into a medical facility anywhere in the world and you don't take care of that person, I would say that you're devoid of a conscience and devoid of any kind of
am I
compassion.
wrong? Any decent human being in this country would say, yes, if somebody is losing their life and they need life-saving care in the ER, no matter what the color of their skin is, whether they're documented or undocumented, we should help that person. Most reasonable people with a heart would answer it that way. Now, if you want to talk about whether they deserve Medicaid,
well, that's what she did.
that's a different subject.
Yeah.
We're talking about life-saving care when somebody is dying and sent to the ER, and she wouldn't answer that
She
question.
conflated the two of them because Medicaid for undocumented is illegal. Sorry to interrupt you, but the listeners have to know it's illegal. It can't be done.
Right. And she calls herself a Christian, a person of faith. These people call themselves children of God, good, wholesome Christians. So I'm wondering what Jesus Christ would say if we have somebody in this country that doesn't have the proper paperwork, a decent human being, a hardworking individual that is having a heart attack, for example, and they're in the ER. And I'm wondering what Jesus Christ would say if Republicans told Jesus, we're not going to help you because you're not legal in this country. That is, again, I'm not a very religious person.
That's anti-Christian. I'll say it.
Right.
I'm a Christian.
I was just going to say that. I'm not a religious person, but I'm pretty sure that's anti-Christ. And that's who Caroline Leavitt is, and that's who these MAGA Republicans are. They are the anti-Christ, meaning they are anti what Jesus Christ would tell you to do. They are not Christians. They are fake Christians. And another one is called J.D. Vance, our Vice President of the United States, who started talking about ERs and using the term illegal aliens. Have a listen to what J.D. Vance had to say about this.
About illegal alien benefits. Look, the text is very clear, and I even saw, I think it was George Stephanopoulos in an interview with Mike Johnson, did a fact check that was totally rooted in baseless claims. It was basically Democrat propaganda. If you look at the legislative text that they gave us, they tried to turn on two separate provisions that would give health care benefits to illegal aliens. Number one, if you're an American citizen, you've been to a hospital in the last few years, you probably noticed that wait times are especially large, and very often somebody who's there in the emergency room waiting is an illegal alien, very often a person who can't even speak English. Why do those people get health care benefits at hospitals paid for by American citizens? The answer is a decision made by the Biden administration that the Trump administration, working with congressional Republicans, undid. We turned off that money spigot to health care funding for illegal aliens. The Democrats, in their legislative text, want to turn it back on.
Okay, so first of all, Vance is saying that Trump and the GOP didn't cut emergency room access for immigrants illegal or not with their last budget bill, but what they will cut is the insurance coverage of 4 million Americans and double the insurance premiums of 24 million Americans. Also, that is a lie. Joe Biden didn't do what J.D. Vance is claiming that he did do. So again, the stance from J.D. Vance is basically, if somebody is dying in the ER, if they're undocumented, we shouldn't help them.
Well, wasn't he fear-mongering? Wasn't he saying, you know, if we let these people get the care, then you're going to have to wait in a longer line because lines are long enough as it is. But can I clarify? Let me just clarify one thing. There is some limited medical coverage for people seeking asylum in America and refugees. When you end up coming into this country, there is a minimum amount of health care you can receive. Not illegals, not undocumented people, not people who have entered this country with bad intent, not criminals. And so what they're doing is they're taking a very, very tiny piece of what the law says, and they're trying to make that the standard. And and I don't even think it's clever, because it sounds like a lie as it comes out of his mouth, at least to me.
Speaking of lies, it was Donald Trump over and over again when running for office for the second time that tried to, or the third time, that tried to distance himself from Project 2025. He was on the campaign tour constantly saying he didn't know anything about Project 2025 and these were alt-right crazies. He said that term over and over again. And this is what Kamala Harris said in regards to that, and you had so-called journalists that were questioning her. Have a listen to this.
Read Project 2020.
The former president said that's not true. He
Says everything. Come on, are we really taking his word for it?
Kamala Harris was right then, and it stands true today. Now, why do I say that? Well, a guy by the name of Russ Vought, I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly,
Oh, God.
is the mastermind behind Project 2025. Keep in mind, Donald Trump said he didn't know anything about Project 2025. Well, now it turns out that that guy is having meetings with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is bragging about the fact that this was the guy that was behind Project 2025. And listen to what Mike Johnson had to say about this, trying to distance himself and saying, well, you know, this guy Russ reluctantly doesn't really want to do this, when we know the truth of the matter is he's taking great pleasure in doing this. Have a listen to this.
They have now effectively turned off the legislative branch, the Article 2 branch of, or the Article 1, sorry, the Article 1 branch of our government, and they've turned it over to the executive, okay? So in that situation, when Congress turns off the funding and the funding runs out, it is up to the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, to determine how those resources will be spent. He has that responsibility given to him by the Democrats in the Senate. They can't complain about it, and he doesn't want to do it. But in this scenario, what they have to do is make very difficult decisions. Most of the responsibility falls to Russ Vought. He's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, as you know. Whomever is seated in the chair at OMB during a shutdown has to do the same thing. Russ does this reluctantly. We had a 45-minute telephone conference with him yesterday. He talked to all the House Republicans. He takes no pleasure in this because Russ has to sit down and decide, because he's in charge of that office, which policies, personnel, and which programs are essential and which are not. That is not a fun task, and he is not enjoying that responsibility. And it could end today if the Senate Democrats would come to their senses and do the right thing for the American people. But if they don't, and if they keep the government closed, it's going to get more and more painful because the resources run out and more things have to be reduced and eliminated. Now, when he sits down as the director of OMB, he will obviously have a subjective determination on the priorities. And what do you think he would do? Because what would any OMB director do under any president? They're going to look to see for the administration's priorities first and ensure that those are funded. And so those are some very serious determinations that have to be made. We want to protect hardworking federal workers. Yes. And these are people who protect all the rest of us, by the way. We mentioned TSA agents, Border Patrol agents, our troops, the military, are not being paid, and so they're inflicting hardship on people for no reason. Is it constitutional? Is it lawful? Is it part of our system? Of course it is. It always has been. And the Democrats are the ones who have decided to inflict the pain, not the president.
Absolutely and positively ridiculous. First of all, this guy Russ, I guarantee you, he is taking great pleasure in doing this.
He's the director of the OMB. He's not just part of the OMB.
And he is pretty much the guy that was at the forefront with Project 2025. Yep. Donald Trump says he has no idea anything about it, and then today on Truth Social, he's bragging about it. Hey, this was the guy that was behind.
It's this plan that they're inputting is in Project 2025.
Pretty much almost everything that
almost
he's doing.
Step by step.
Martial law. We talk about
Department of Education.
Everything.
Fire employees. No more aid for the rest of the world. Let people die. It's all in there.
And that's exactly what Donald Trump has been implementing since day one, since he got into office. And this guy was the guy that was behind it. And Kamala Harris was right. And all the idiots in the media that said, oh, no, Trump said he's got nothing to do with Project 2025. He doesn't even know what's in there. And Well, why don't all of you people apologize, including a lot of people in the left-wing media as well that were attacking Kamala Harris for this? Not only was Kamala Harris right, but all of us were right when we talked about Project 2025 and it would be implemented. The guy who literally founded Project 2025 is now in a very powerful position, meeting with Donald Trump now as we speak, in implementing
He's
more
in
of those
charge
policies.
of the Office of Management and Budget. So he basically takes all the money and tells them how much they have, where it needs to be cut, who needs to go, and as you said, his plan is in Project 2025. So he has no love for public workers at all.
So think about this for a moment. You have MAGA Republicans all across the country that are blaming Democrats for the government shutdown, which is abundantly false. You have Mike Johnson, J.D. Vance, and others lying about the Democrat agenda, which is what they want. They don't want free health care for all undocumented immigrants. I went through this yesterday. We're talking about migrants, those that are seeking asylum. They want things to stay in place. It is illegal right now for an undocumented immigrant to get Medicaid.
That's
it is
correct.
illegal. They cannot get government funding. They need a social security number, and if they're undocumented, they can't get it. So this is a lie. And then when you ask Republicans to clarify, they'll say, well, it's going to happen.
They don't get
Says
Medicare,
who?
Medicare either.
This is a lie. And yet Donald Trump said today that the government has made $17 trillion. So my question to Donald Trump is, where did that money go? Where did the $17 trillion go? He's claiming they've made $17 trillion. Where has that money been allocated to?
You know
where
that's
did it
not
go?
You know he's lying when he says that.
Well, of course they didn't make $17 trillion. That's a joke. But why won't a member of the media ask him that? Why won't they ask Caroline Leavitt? Caroline, the President of the United States said you guys have made $17 trillion since he took office. Can you please tell us where that money went? Why can't a member of the media ask that question? Why? Why won't they hold this administration accountable? Every single time Donald Trump lies, we need to hold them
The
accountable.
media has really gotten soft. They really have.
Am I wrong here?
No, they
Trump
got-
just
they got
said
soft.
17. If that's the case, then why are you cutting Medicaid? Why are you doing this? Why are you cutting food stamps for so many people that need it desperately? If you claim you've made $17 trillion, which, by the way, they have not, we know that's a lie, but let's hold them accountable. Why won't people ask them questions? Where did that money go? Did you give it to Jared Kushner for a resort in Gaza? Where did it go? I want to know.
Did he give it to Ghislaine Maxwell, maybe?
Yeah, maybe you gave it to Maxwell, or gave her some tennis lessons
Go to the salon.
at
get
Club
her-
Med. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's grossly overstated. And what's interesting is last night on MSNBC, Lawrence O'Donnell, who I like, he's a little boring, but he was talking about possibly people should be talking about the 25th Amendment. And if a president is not mentally able or physically able to serve, then they have. And also Governor Pritzker from Chicago was talking about 25th Amendment.
Yeah.
And seeing if we could take a look at that.
I don't know if that's going to work, but I can tell you that there are prime ministers and presidents all over the world that are laughing at us, and we have the audio to prove it. The prime minister of Albania, I believe.
Albania, not Armenia.
Yeah. The prime minister of Albania was having a laugh with Macron and some other leaders because, remember, Donald Trump claimed that he ended the war between the two countries.
Well, he didn't say Azerbaijan. He said
Yeah.
Aberjan.
Right, he pronounced the name wrong. So he claimed that he ended the war between their two countries, which, by the way, that war never started to begin with.
Yeah.
And you have these leaders on audio that are laughing about it. They're laughing at Donald Trump. Have a listen to this.
You should make an apology here to us. Because you didn't congratulate us on the peace deal that President Trump made between Albania and Azerbaijan.
I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. So, and you worked very hard.
They're laughing.
They're laughing at it and they're being sarcastic about it. That's the prime minister of Albania saying, thank you, Trump did so much, and they're laughing because it's so ridiculous. The world is laughing at us.
Yeah, he said Albania instead of Armenia, which he did not have a treaty signed between the two, and he didn't stop any war. They're still in conflict.
I thought he ended 7 wars.
Well,
Is that-
like
is
we
that-
discussed yesterday, there's no proof that any war treaty has been signed by any of those 7 countries, and most of them ended the conflict. In fact, India and Pakistan said publicly in the media that he had nothing to do with them resolving their differences.
I mean, this is at another level now. I can't recall when Joe Biden was president or Barack Obama was president. Heck, even George W. Bush, world leaders laughing about us, laughing about
how
our
embarrassing
president.
in front of the military generals. How embarrassing was that? He was droning on. He was leaning over. He was, talking badly about people. He was talking about stuff that doesn't matter. He wanted them to clap and laugh. He doesn't understand that there's a certain code of conduct within the military. So the reason they're standing there listening to you frozen is because that's what they're trained to do. That's what their people do when the generals speak. But
Right.
he didn't get that.
So that's where we're at right now as a country. We're in another government shutdown. By the way, might I add, the last government shutdown was in 2019. Who was president then? We have MAGA Republicans who run the House and the Senate and the White House who are claiming that it's Chuck Schumer's shutdown when all the Democrats really wanted was to keep things in place so that over 15 million Americans don't lose their Medicaid, so that those that are seeking asylum, who, by the way, are not technically illegal, who try to do things the right way, and many of these people are getting handcuffed and tackled by so-called ICE agents outside of courtrooms, can get the necessary health care that they need. And MAGA Republicans who call themselves the party of pro-life, which they are not. They are just
Not even close,
anti-abortion.
actually.
And they won't even answer the most basic of human questions, which is if somebody is about to lose their life, if they don't get the health care that they need in an emergency room, will you help them if they're undocumented? And they won't even answer that question.
Can I ask you a question? How do you negotiate on a continuing resolution if the Democrats are in their offices working and the Republicans are gone? They're on vacation. They're in their own states. They're not even on the grounds to negotiate. So who really wants to shut down? Who's really in favor of it?
There's no question that Donald Trump wanted this to happen. Because if MAGA Republicans did not want this to happen, I guarantee you the government would still be open right now.
He wants to fire public employees with no due process, with no rights, with no hearings. He wants to be able to fire them and say, well, it's because we don't have the money to pay you. And by the way, when it's time for people to come back, he's going to bring back his loyal people. He's not going to bring back the people who've been working for 20 years and have families and homes and mortgage payments.
So it is
and car
interesting,
payments.
right? And we're probably going to talk about this next segment, I'm sure, but we hear the term DEI hire by MAGA Republicans all the time. But who are the real DEI hires? Basically, 90% of Donald Trump's administration. Yeah, you can find a few people that are qualified, like the Marco Rubios of the world and others. But really, the people that are in the administration, they're the real DEI hires. I'm sorry that they are.
Yeah, it's not merit-based at all. When you take a weekend commentator from a news program and put him in charge of the military as the Secretary of Defense, that's probably not based on merit, or is it just me?
No, I agree with you. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. If you look up the term DEI, as I've said before, I think this is just a code word for MAGA Republicans, other than calling them the N word. That's what this is.
Can I say something about DEI real quick before we get to the clip? So people need to understand that diversity, equity, and inclusion, all we're asking for, the people who support DEI are asking for some kind of a level playing field. What they're saying is, if you just hire certain kind of people because the country's run by white people or conservatives or white Christians, what they're saying is DEI just levels the playing field. It allows females to get jobs that they wouldn't otherwise get, minorities, people who speak a language that you don't speak. So why would people be against something that levels the playing field and makes it competitive? Why would they be against that?
Because I'll give you the simple answer. Because this was never about making America great again. It was always about making America white again. Ichikon in the YouTube Super Chat says, one of my biggest problems with the Democrat Party is how they've coddled the hypocrisy from the guardians of pedophiles for so long that it's mutated into the mass psychosis we see now. To an extent, I certainly agree with you on that. And maybe this, again, is all a distraction from Epstein. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But
that's what people say.
I can guarantee you this story's not going away. So we're going to take a quick break. Lori, I think we had another one on there. I wanted to read Lori's statement as well, which says, since Trump is doing chaos here and abroad, the Heritage Foundation is working behind the scenes to harm us and the world. The playbook from 2025. Yeah, Lori, we were just talking about
They've
that.
been working for decades. People need to know that. This
Yep.
this didn't just happen in the last couple of years.
No doubt. I completely agree with you. This is exactly what we are facing here. This is Project 2025 being implemented as we speak. It's been implemented since day one, since Donald Trump took office, and it's being implemented now. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, this was a story that I talked about last week. It's the story of a right-wing conservative group that they were trying to do some Charlie Kirk style debate at Tennessee State University, which is a predominantly black school. And they held up signs that said DEI should be illegal, deport all illegals, stuff that would just really get anybody upset, especially if you're a minority in this country. Well, there's a guy on social media with a platform that disagreed with me on it. Obviously, I thought it was despicable and disgusting. His name is Brad Palumbo. He is a right-wing podcaster, and I know we're going to get into a good debate.
It was race baiting. We talked about this.
Yep.
They were sitting there on lawn chairs race baiting.
Brad disagrees with us on this, so
Okay.
we're going to get into a good spirited debate when we come back. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back in 90 seconds. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a piece?
Welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. The Mooch, Anthony Scaramucci, is going to be joining us on the program tomorrow, by the way, so certainly looking forward to that. So I talked about this story last week where a conservative group was hosting a Charlie Kirk-style debate table at Tennessee State University, which is a predominantly black university. And they had a few signs up there. One of them said DEI should be illegal and that all illegals should be deported. Well, one of the students took one of the signs, and then campus police escorted them out. And the University of Tennessee put out a statement as well, which I will get to. Somebody who disagreed with my stance on that is a guy by the name of Brad Palumbo. He's a journalist and a YouTuber, host of a Brad versus Everybody podcast. And instead of having a debate with him on social media, which usually I don't like doing, I said, why don't you just come on the show and we'll talk about it, which I always welcome a good spirited debate on this show. And I think anybody would say that I have more Republicans on this show than Democrats. Brad, I appreciate you coming on. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to debate. Have seen you on Piers Morgan mixing it up as well. That's always entertaining.
It definitely is. That entertaining is one word to put it. That's for sure. All right, so Brad, help me out here. Why am I wrong? Because the University of Tennessee put out a statement, and they said that if you're going to do this type of thing, anything political, anything, even if you're just setting up a table and you want to debate people, that you have to give campus prior notice. They said that's in accordance with university policy. Any demonstration, anything to this, you need some sort of permit. And the university said they didn't ask for one. So where am I wrong on this?
Well, so I think there's two dimensions of this. The first dimension is what you said, whether that even applies, because they have you require a permit for a protest or a demonstration. But generally at a public campus, a taxpayer-funded campus bound by the First Amendment, you're able to just go there and talk to people. I went to a public college, and every day people came to hand out pro-life literature, to yell about the Bible. They did not require a permit for doing that. So public colleges are allowed to have permitting rules for like a protest, a demonstration. But if their policy actually applies to two people setting up a table and talking to people, then it's unconstitutionally broad, I would say. And if it doesn't, then they're just citing this to shut down this conservative event, even though it doesn't apply.
Well, why wouldn't they apply for one then? It would have saved a lot of grief, wouldn't it? Why wouldn't they apply for a permit then? Because they didn't.
Maybe they should for their future stops. I'm not against that. I'm just more concerned by the behavior of the students at this university. When people come to exercise their First Amendment rights, it descends into a borderline riot with vandalism, people pounding on their cars, yelling Black Power, ripping up their signs. I mean, these are people going there to debate, and you have the power to ignore them if you want, but you don't get to freak out and silence other people just because they say words that hurt your feelings.
But in this specific situation, those two individuals that were doing this have made a living on social media off of causing chaos. And you know as well as I do, you go to a prominently Black university and you hold up a sign that says DEI should be illegal and all immigrants should be deported. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be upset at that. And last I checked,
that's not a hot take, though. First of all, like that's DEI should be illegal is not. Half the country agrees with both those statements, and it's illegal immigrants should be deported, by the way, not all immigrants, as you just said. So I think that's an important distinction.
So if DEI should be illegal, then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. probably never should have gotten the position then, right? Because
I would agree with you. There's lots of unqualified people in the Trump administration. You're not going to get an argument from me.
But they never talk about that. They talk about the race of someone, the color of somebody. 90% of Donald Trump's administration are DEI hires. But yet you never
hire because of. I think there's a difference between an unqualified hire and a DEI hire. A DEI hire is someone put in place specifically to check an identity box. And I don't think RFK Jr. was picked for that. He was picked for other reasons. And you could say he
wasn't picked because of his he wasn't picked because of his qualifications.
Yeah, but that's something different. A DEI hire is when you specifically hire someone because of their race or their identity. I don't think they hired him for being a white man or for being heterosexual. I think they hired him because he has a certain fan base and agenda and ideas, and they wanted to pander to a certain crowd. But let's not get derailed into that too much. I think to say DEI should be illegal is not a particularly radical take in my view. DEI is a form of reverse discrimination in many cases. And it doesn't actually matter if it is, though. Because we should not, the school told these students who freaked out, who ripped up these signs, they said in a statement they behave professionally. Let's say it is as radical a take as maybe you think it is. I certainly don't. Students, college students, grown adults should not throw a fit because another person expresses a controversial opinion in public. They can ignore it. If these people are courting controversy, the way you say they are, and that's true, when people who set up the Change My Mind tables are courting controversy, they could act like adults and simply ignore it. Instead, they behaved like petulant children, threw a fit, and then got praised by their university. Like it's our tax dollars. I've got a real problem with that.
Wouldn't you say that 70% of the Republican Party have done that with the 2020 election, refusing to admit that Donald Trump lost? When you look at what happened on January 6th and people died that day, last I checked, nobody died. I'm not defending someone who rips up a sign, but last I checked, nobody was physically assaulted. They weren't saying hang the vice president. There wasn't an insurrection. Would you apply that to something like January 6th, where people actually died? If you want to talk about people acting like children, I would talk about 7 out of 10 Republicans today still believe that Trump won the 2020 election. So wouldn't that apply to 70% of Republicans that are morons that act like children?
I completely condemn the January 6th riot. I think anybody involved in that, I don't think the 2020 election was stolen, any of that. But you are engaging in whataboutism, though. You're just bringing up something else to change the topic.
Well, because you're saying that this was like a borderline riot, I respectfully disagree with you. Was anybody arrested for assault?
Multiple
person.
people should have been arrested.
Okay, but that's your opinion. Okay, but with respect, Brad, that's your opinion that you think people should have been arrested
They're on
for assault.
camera doing crimes.
Okay, well, nobody was arrested for assault. So
the cops let them get away with it. But the fact that January 6th also happened doesn't make what happened here not bad. It's just like, oh, well, you think this thing is bad? What about 9/11? It's like,
no, 9/11 were terrorists that decided to kill a bunch of Americans. January 6th were a bunch of MAGA Republican morons who believed that the election was stolen and they tried to overturn free and fair election.
It doesn't have anything to do with the issue.
But it does, though, because I always hear from people on the right saying that the left are the violent people. Now, there are violent people, I'm sure you would agree, on both sides.
Yeah.
But you had said this was a borderline riot. Nobody was physically injured. How could it? I mean, like,
watch the footage of them surrounding the car.
I watched
throwing stuff at them, grabbing their signs, ripping them up. Yeah, that's a borderline riot.
Okay, well, again, by the facts, whether you agree or not that somebody should have been arrested, the fact of the matter is that nobody was assaulted. Nobody was arrested. I don't condone ripping up a sign, but if that's the worst thing that they did, I wouldn't call it anywhere near a riot. And the thing that bothers me most about this is that these two individuals that went there wanted that. How do we know that? They were recording everything. They make money off of getting clicks. They knew that they would rile people up. Yes, I think their signs are absolutely ridiculous. Doesn't mean I would have ripped up their sign. I probably would have called them morons if I was there, a bunch of morons, because that's what I think they are. And by the way, they won't debate anybody unless they're 18 and 19-year-old liberals, just like Charlie Kirk.
That's true. I bet you.
Well, guess what? I invited them to come on this show, and they declined. But yet they'll go on Newsmax and they'll talk to them. I don't think they want a real debate. Just like Charlie Kirk, he debated. All due respect, he debated a bunch of 18 and 19-year-old liberals on college campuses.
Yeah, that may be, but I mean, none of that justifies their behavior. In fact, you play into that. Then ignore them. If you know they're going there seeking a debate and clout, and why give them exactly what they want? I agree with you. When these college students behave like fools and freak out and then get them kicked off campus, the best thing you could do to these people who you say are just seeking conflict, and I think there's a grain of truth to that, but that's just kind of the content generation that we're in now, is ignore them. You played in these people who you are.
Okay, you and I both know.
Played into it.
But you and I both know 18, 19, 20-year-old college students will have a little bit of a harder time controlling their emotions than someone that's 30, 40, 50, 60.
But they're adults. You can expect them to behave like civilized adults.
Well, listen, somebody ripped up a sign, okay? As I said, I wouldn't say it was a riot.
Mob chased them off campus.
Well, it was campus police that escorted them out last I checked.
And then the administration said this was professional behavior by their students. That's actually worse to me, because I agree with you. College students can be dumb. The administrators really bother me and should borderline be investigated by the Department of Education. If they're getting our tax dollars and they think that students throwing a fit like that to guests on campus is professional behavior, I'm not sure they should be getting taxpayer.
Well, I think the majority of the students there were not committing any crimes. In fact, nobody was handcuffed. Nobody was taken into custody. You could make the argument that if you're ripping up a sign, I guess you could say a stupid sign. I guess you could say technically that could be a misdemeanor, but the overwhelming majority of those students were also exercising their First Amendment rights. You have a right to yell at somebody.
Shouting other people down is not a First Amendment right. You don't have a heckler's veto.
Shouting somebody down.
If you're trying to do a speaking event and I come and I scream over you so you can't be heard, that's not me exercising my free speech.
So the issue I have with that, number one, is that, again, I go back to what I said earlier. Some universities have different rules. It's clearly stated that for what these two individuals were trying to do, they needed to get permission first, and they didn't. So technically, they shouldn't have even been there to begin with.
Yeah,
now,
I don't consider setting up a table and speaking to a couple to people. protest or a demonstration, but regardless, it doesn't justify the behavior, right? Then that would mean that campus police could come and ask them to leave campus. Does not mean that a mob of students should surround them, start screaming, start throwing things, start ripping up their property. Like, why can't you just say that's bad and those students should be condemned?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead, Leonard.
Hi, Brad. This is Leonard. We never met, but when you go to a college campus, there's a thing called provoking an assault. It's a misdemeanor. And if what you do provokes an assault or could possibly, if they would have applied for a permit, then the police could have had some security there. They could have been prepared for it. And everybody would have understood that they were giving a demonstration under the First Amendment. But what they did, if you go into a theater and you yell bomb, for instance, some would argue you can do that. That's first, but because you're provoking, because you're threatening other people, and there's no reason for them to sit there with those signs. And yes, they knew they were going to provoke people and get clicks. They were there for clicks. And it was race baiting. Was it not race baiting?
No.
No.
To say DEI should be illegal is not race baiting.
Okay, hold on. You don't think, you just think it's a coincidence that they hold up a sign that says DEI is illegal, and they go to one of the most prominent Black universities in the country, in Tennessee State.
Dozens of campuses,
I
HBCUs
understand.
and non-HBCUs, and they hold up the same few signs.
I understand that, but you think this is just a coincidence that they just chose this university because they thought they could have good civil debate, holding up a sign that says DEI is illegal, and you don't think that had anything to do, as what Leonard said, a little bit of provoking?
That's what they were there
I'm not
for.
going to victim blame people. I'm not going to victim blame people because they said the wrong opinion. I don't think Black students need to be coddled from ideas. Many of them may agree that DEI is problematic in many ways. Like, that is an opinion you're allowed to express, and it is not remotely akin to threatening someone or yelling bomb. DEI is a new phenomenon, right, that pushes in many cases reverse discrimination. So
no, it's not.
To
It's
say
not
that you
reverse
can't express that opinion, or you are provoking crimes and being shouted down and having your property destroyed, is bizarre victim blaming that I just don't agree with.
Well, I disagree with your characterization with respect when it comes to DEI. I personally believe that when MAGA Republicans, I'm not saying you're one of those people, but when MAGA Republicans use the term DEI, I think it's a code word for the N-word. I really do. We heard that with Kamala Harris. Well, we heard that with Kamala Harris, that she was a DEI hire. We've heard it.
That blame Biden for that because he specifically made her a DEI hire.
The current expression for racist is really what it is.
But so the problem is, though, that you can't claim it's racist to call someone a DEI hire when you were specifically hired based on their race and or gender.
That's the case they made with Kamala Harris. Just because Joe Biden said he was going to hire a black, just because Joe Biden said he was going to hire a black woman doesn't mean that the black woman that he hired wasn't qualified. That's not a
DEI hire because she was specifically hired because of diversity.
That was one of many reasons why Joe Biden decided to use.
If Kamala Harris was exactly the same person, but a white male senator from California, she would not have been selected as Joe Biden's vice president, and we know that according to Joe Biden.
That's a Charlie Kirk theory right there.
I mean, yeah, I would say that's
he was right about that one.
Kirk theory. Wow.
Was he right about the Civil Rights Act was a bad idea?
No,
was a mistake.
And that black women don't get jobs unless the white person leaves and then they get the job.
Was he right about Michelle Obama when he said that Michelle Obama shouldn't be taken seriously because she didn't have the brain power? Was he right about that?
No, I mean, I don't know the exact context of that.
Was he right? Was he right? Well, I do because I've been talking about it a lot. Was he right when he got on an airplane and said, "Should I be worried if there's a black pilot"? Was he right about that?
I've criticized Charlie a lot, so try to put everything he ever said on me.
I'm not trying to pit it on you. I'm just saying that Charlie Kirk was wrong about a lot of stuff, and I think a lot of the stuff he said was filled with hatred and bigotry. By the way, I was the first person that what happened to him was horrible, and he didn't deserve it. And I feel for his family, but at the same time, I am not going to celebrate his life. And these people that go onto these campuses that are trying to imitate Charlie Kirk. And I believe these two individuals are doing that, and they did try to incite. They wanted. They know if they had
violence, they did no such thing.
Okay, well, if they want civil discourse, they could have done it in another way. They also could have had the university prepare for it by asking for a permit. Yes. And even though
common sense,
but even though you disagree, Brad, and you don't think they should have asked for a permit, you're entitled to your opinion.
I said they maybe should have, but they shouldn't have to. No,
they weren't talking to people. They weren't handing out pamphlets. They weren't chit-chatting and getting people's opinion. They were sitting. There were provocative signs, and any person with common sense would know that you're going to provoke a problem on any campus if you put out signs, especially one that's predominantly black. They knew that. I knew that.
With the campus and the
Put
students,
around common
putting
sense.
out a political
Explain
opinion sign
away
is going to
common sense.
provoke a problem. You should
Yes.
be able to go to a college campus and hold up an abortion is healthcare sign and not have a mob swarm around you, scream at you, rip up your stuff, throw things at you. It's free speech. It's common sense. These are
No, ripping up
institutions that
someone's
have to respect
property
people's rights.
is actually can be considered illegal. That is not.
What did you say?
something
Sorry.
that you do.
Well, no, I'm not defending anybody that ripped up a sign. What the point I'm trying to make, Brad, is that whether you agree or not with the university's stance, they have a right to have rules. It's their university.
The rules can also be unconstitutional. My college had a free speech zone policy that got struck down in court. So just because they have a rule doesn't mean it's valid or constitutionally
Yeah, but the rule is there for public safety, Brad.
Correct.
It's to keep people safe. It's to say, I was a police officer for 25 years. I'm sure you don't know that, but in Vegas, they would protest at the Martin Luther King statue on MLK and Cary, and everybody had to have a permit. If you go out there and you start provoking violence and putting out signs that are going to upset people, the police would have came by and asked you to leave and go get a permit. It's for the public safety because you know you're going to provoke assault. You know, already know it.
There's a difference between a protest, a mass gathering of hundreds or thousands of people, and two dudes with a chair and a camera. You can just
they were protesting, in my opinion. That was a protest.
So you think anybody should go on a college campus and be able to hold up any sign they want?
Exactly.
That's my question.
Yes, a public campus, in a public space.
All right, so so let's go with that theory, which obviously, Brad, I disagree with you on. So you're saying that it should be your right to go on any college campus, let's just say a black college campus, and hold up a sign that says the N-word.
There you go.
You're okay with that?
The First Amendment says that. Yeah, I went to a public college.
But you should expect something to happen.
I would walk by and there'd be Christian people yelling about F slurs burning in hell, and I kept it moving.
Okay, but that could incite violence, and that can cause.
It does not meet the constitutional definition of incitement of violence. You should read Brandenburg v.
Can they hold a sign saying, "I put a bomb in the school"? Can they hold up a sign under their First Amendment and say, "Just so you know, I put a bomb in the school"? Can they sit there with that sign?
No, that's a threat.
Well, you know what? It provokes.
Opinion is not a threat. A slur or a mean word is not a threat.
It's not an open card. And why wouldn't you apply for a permit? All you had to do was apply for a permit. They would have had a couple of security standing by, most likely, and they would have had a line there to speak to them, and they could have done it within the law. They chose. They want clicks.
So, Brad, let me give you just an example, and I think you know what I'm talking about here. I'm part of a group called the Un-F America Tour. Basically, it's the opposite of Turning Point, right? I just joined the organization. Yeah. So we went to Colorado State. I went to the Charlie Kirk Vigil, even though I felt very uncomfortable, but I was respectful and I went there. We needed to get a permit. And by the way, very liberal university, might I add. I would imagine they probably agreed with a lot of what the Un-F America Tour is doing, but they said we couldn't be there unless we applied for a permit. So what did the leaders of this group do? We applied for a permit, and they granted us the permit. That's what should be done.
Guys, in like the first 2 minutes of this conversation, I said they should have got a permit. But the fact that they didn't doesn't justify the almost riot that ensued from them holding up an opinion sign.
Nothing justifies that.
I'm not justifying anybody who ripped up a sign. The only point that I'm trying to make, Brad, is that nobody was arrested. You can disagree with that. Nobody was arrested for assault. In fact, to my knowledge, nobody was arrested for anything. And if it was close to
just because they don't enforce the law, it doesn't mean that the crimes we can see on camera aren't crimes.
Hold on, Brad. And in order to enforce the law, you have to have a victim, and the victim has to say, "I want to charge him with destroying my property." I
promise you can't. Let me
finish. You have if they were leaving and the police came, or the campus police, and they said, "Do you guys want to do anything?" and they said no, you can't charge someone with a crime if the person doesn't want to be a victim. So we don't know what happened.
Well, let me ask you a question, okay? Because you're a journalist, right? I've had Cam Higby on this show before, who I think is a complete clown. He makes a living wanting to be attacked. Now, he won't admit that publicly, but I know people who know him very well. He carries mace with him, and he's literally followed Antifa and antagonized them. He makes a living off of these viral videos. He's not a journalist. That's not a journalist. Cam Higby is a clown.
He has First Amendment rights nonetheless and should not be assaulted.
I'm not saying he should be assaulted. What I am saying is
he's asking for it. His skirt's too short.
No, No, this has nothing to do with sexual stuff. When somebody shows up and they follow around Antifa and they antagonize them with a camera, I'm not condoning
provoking them.
I'm not condoning any physical assault, but what he's doing is he is doing something, as Leonard said, provoking. That, by the way, that's not a journalist. Okay, a journalist doesn't act that way. A journalist doesn't want to get into a physical confrontation. Cam has literally made a living, not because he's a great journalist, not because he does great interviews with people, because he's a moron who shows up to very volatile situations and asks for it. He follows people. He antagonizes people.
He asks for being assaulted.
Okay, so give me a reason why somebody would chase down an Antifa member and call them names with a camera. Explain to me the reasoning behind that, because there's video of him doing that. Tell me one good reason why somebody would do that.
Extremists, and extremists keep proving them correct, that there is a real problem on these college campuses and these other left.
So you're condoning that behavior. You're condoning that behavior.
I'm saying he has a right to do that without being assaulted. It's not my style.
So,
okay, but there's a charge that exists in America called provoking assault. You can get charged with a crime. It's a misdemeanor for provoking assault from someone. If you get in their personal space, if you get in their face, if you touch them, if you push them, you're provoking assault, and they can react. You can't just do whatever you want whenever you want. People need their own personal safety.
Well, I've able and invited people to talk to him.
Yeah, you're making a good point, but it's just not. With me, it's just not.
Well, landing. Listen, we can agree to disagree on that. I think they make a living off of wanting chaos. I've seen their videos. I see what they do. I don't think what they're doing is good for anybody. At least I'll give Charlie Kirk credit.
Stop giving them what they want and behaving so horribly. Brian, how about this? If those students at that HBCU had ignored him and went about their day, he wouldn't have got what he wanted. He wouldn't have got the sympathetic coverage, and they wouldn't have embarrassed themselves in their university.
That's a what if. We don't know.
Maybe this is the way that I am, regardless of my skin color. If I saw a couple people with signs like that, I would have called them morons, because I think they are. Even though they're entitled to their opinions, I would have told them why I think they're morons, and I would not have ignored them, because I think people like that need to be called out. They have the right to do that.
And you have the right to do
that. And I have the right to do that as well. And I think they're idiots, and they're not willing. They don't want civil discourse. They don't want good political debate. They would have come on my show, and I wouldn't have called them names. I would have had a civil debate with them like I'm having with you. But they don't want that. You know what they did? They made an appearance on Newsmax, okay, where there'll be zero pushback. And that's what these cowards do. And Cam Higbee did my show, and he didn't expect me to grill him on what he does for a living, which is antagonize people and try to confront Antifa members across the country to try to go viral, which I think is disgusting. And he's a talentless clown. And anybody who does that.
I'm just saying he shouldn't be.
Okay, well, I'm not defending it, but then again, if you incite, which I believe he does, when you're following an Antifa member, and you're
not defending it, I'm just saying he provoked it. He was asking for it.
What I am saying is that when you follow somebody and call them names with a camera, that is nothing more than trying to incite something.
They may defend themselves.
Okay,
sorry, words are not violence. And if you respond to violence with words, or words with violence,
following people can be threatening. If somebody was following me everywhere, can I ask you one question, Brad? Because you seem to be very, very impressed with the First Amendment. But do you have the same feelings on the First Amendment when it comes to comedians, when it comes to news? People who put out the news, professionals, journalists, do you think that their First Amendment rights are being impeded upon and stamped upon by the Trump administration right now?
I actually went on Fox News and debated a host and criticized the Trump administration for threatening.
Good for you.
Well, I appreciate that, because I do think that's what the Trump administration certainly is doing. But I would hold Donald Trump to a higher standard than I would students at a university. I would put them at a higher standard for sure.
Them to behave like adults.
Do you think Donald Trump behaves like an adult?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Who did you vote for?
I'm starting to like Brad.
If you don't mind me asking, just to be fair to my listeners, you are considered yourself a center-right person. Is that correct? I want to be okay. So who did you support, if you don't mind me asking you?
I typically vote for the Libertarian candidate.
Did you this turn around, or did you vote for Donald Trump?
Yes.
I don't remember who the Libertarian candidate was.
I don't either. I'm embarrassed to say I don't either. I don't even.
It was Chase Oliver.
Okay, got you. Got you. Okay. I mean, when you see what's going on in this country right now, and listen, you didn't vote for Donald Trump. You're not a Trump supporter. But when you see what concerns you most, I'm just curious. As you being a journalist and traveling all over the place, what concerns you most about what's going on in this country right now?
Well, honestly, the free speech is a big one. I'm a big believer in the First Amendment, so I've been very outspoken against Trump deporting people for writing op-eds he doesn't like. I've been very outspoken against him punishing news organizations who don't use his preferred word choice for Gulf of America. Very concerned by that kind of thing. Honestly, my biggest fear is that the checks and balances will break down, right? That I know he's going to do illegal stuff, but I actually think a lot of the conservative judges, even from his own first term, will rule against him. If he just starts flagrantly, blatantly ignoring Supreme Court rulings, he did finally obey the Kilmar-Abrego Garcia ruling, but that was very concerning to me, the way he flouted that initially. I'm worried some kind of breakdown like that might happen. That's probably what I'm most concerned about. And then, there's the issues with causing global trade wars. I think is incredibly harmful, making America a place that people don't want to visit, tourism way down. I think we should be welcoming skilled and talented people to our country, not punishing them and scaring them away. So I would say all of those things concern me. Obviously, there's some stuff he's done that I've supported, but I agreed with. I don't know. I think this second time around has been exponentially worse and more destructive than his first presidency.
I agree, because I think he had some people around him in his first administration, like General Milley and others, that were able to say, no, Mr. President, we can't do that. I can't name one person that does that now.
Being like, this is bad.
Right.
I agree with him on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. If you don't mind, I want to ask you this question as well, because as being a gay man, right, and I am pro-LGBTQ community, I always have been. I want people to live their lives and be who they are. The Republican Party is a party of our history. They are against gay marriage. Many on the evangelical right think being gay is a sin, which I think is disgusting, and it's despicable to think that about anybody just because their sexuality might be different than mine. What do you think about the right-wing evangelical community? And let's be honest, right-wing, evangelical Christians are 99% Republican. What do you make of those people that think people like you are sinners just because your sexuality might be different than them?
Well, it's a complicated question. I think there's two different questions there. There's one is, what do I think about, or how do I engage with Christian conservatives who have the beliefs you're describing? Another one is the state of the Republican Party. To me, those are actually very different issues. The Republican Party, it's definitely backslid in the last couple of years, but prior to that, was it becoming much more of an accepting party for gay people? Trump is obviously appointed the highest ranking gay official in Scott Bessent that we've ever had. He's essentially neutral on gay marriage. He got the anti-gay marriage plank removed from the GOP platform, actually. I've never considered Trump to be particularly homophobic. I think he's fine with gay people if they like him, because he's a narcissist. So the same way he'll love a black person if they like him, I think that's all he really cares about. I don't think and then lots of Republicans are not anti-gay. There's definitely still that faction. I guess the distinction that I draw is, if someone has a religious belief that my lifestyle or how I am is sinful, but does not seek to impose that on me, then we can coexist. But
what about gays in the military? What about kicking the gays out of the military? Are you okay with that?
Of course not. But Trump hasn't done that.
Well, he's talked about, and the two don't compare, but obviously transgenders in the military. This is a party that goes after transgenders, that goes after drag queens.
You ask about gay people.
I understand.
Very different.
But I understand that, as I said. But if you're talking about discriminating against people, the right-wing, far-right portion of the Republican Party is doing that with transgenders, with drag queens, making the case that teachers are indoctrinating students all over the country, which obviously...
teachers are indoctrinating students.
How many? There's 300,000 teachers in this country. How many of those teachers do you think are indoctrinating students and telling them to be gay or telling them to be transgender? Because that's really what indoctrination is, convincing somebody that they should be something that they're not. How many teachers out of the 300,000 do you think are indoctrinating our kids?
I don't know the amount. I know that the official state curriculum in places like Washington State will teach students about confusing radical ideological nonsense like non-binary identities, other things. And then you'll see video after video after video of teachers who are teaching about pronouns and gender identity, and a lot of what they're saying is gobbledygook and not actually really.
Why is that bad? Why is that bad for kids? I don't know.
Because it's confusing and it's incorrect. A lot of what they're like, when they teach that some people are neither male nor female, that's not correct. There's males and females in very rare intersex conditions. It's anti-scientific. Actually,
you're talking about when they're born, correct? They're male and female when they're born, correct?
What?
Well, when they're born, obviously a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. But I think what we were talking about is later on, children may identify. Are you saying that the adult influence is bad when it comes to whether or not they want to be a pronoun or be gay or lesbian? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, I think sexuality and gender identity are different conversations. I don't think kids become gay if you talk to them about gay things. Sexuality is actually pretty rigid. If talking to people about heterosexuality made you straight, I would be straight because that's all I saw in representation. Gender identity is a different thing because it's a nebulous identity-based concept. And I do think it's subject to some of the same social and psychological pressures and impulses that other things are.
So do you really believe that if, for example, a teacher says you should be transgender, which, by the way, I think there's a very small minority of teachers that are doing that. But let's just say there was. You think there are cases in this country where a child is told you should be transgender and he goes home, he or she, and says, hey, dad, hey, mom, I want to have a sex change. And then the parents just say, okay, son, okay, daughter, let's go to the hospital. I think that is utterly ridiculous. That's not happening in the
happen. You're acting like it happens in the course of 24 hours. But I think if you have a child who is introduced to concepts and told things that, well, some people are non-binary. I mean, why are there classes in New York City schools where 6 girls in 1 year come out as trans or non-binary? Is that an organic phenomenon? I don't think so. It's clearly
I disagree respectfully. I think it's more socially acceptable now than it was decades ago. I just think same thing with being gay. I think you would know about this. It's not that there are more people that are gay today. It's that there are more people that feel more comfortable in their sexuality as opposed to 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago when socially it wasn't as acceptable. It's the same thing.
That is the entire picture about what's happening with gender identity. The rapid uptick in people identifying as trans or non-binary is huge. It is not a slow
society. Why does that hurt society? What do you care with what somebody does to their body? I don't understand. How does that affect you?
Well, I don't care what adults do to their bodies. So I believe absolutely that a person who identifies as trans and is an adult should be able to do whatever they want. I find it horrifying that children are put on puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones and are left sterilized and disfigured based on an identity they may or may not have grown out of anyway.
So is the problem with parents? Is that what you're saying? Because the parents allow it?
What'd you say?
Is the problem with the parents? Because the parents allow it?
That's actually, I put the problem with the medical system. I think the research is coming out now that this was never supported, the giving children these treatments, very low evidence base. And I think given how drastic a lot of it is, it shouldn't have been done to minors.
What about the children that have gender dysphoria, that have committed suicide, that have not gotten what you've had? What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's heartbreaking. I think it's terrible. But there's not evidence to suggest that medically transitioning minors reduces suicide.
I didn't say it reduces suicide, but there are plenty of children out there, sadly, that do have this, and they have taken their own lives. Because I guess the point I'm trying to make
is... yeah. What's your point?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is this. I think the Republican Party for years have talked about, we don't want the government to take control. We don't want the government to tell you what to do. Yet they're the same people who, in half the states in this country where abortion is illegal, in some of those states, even with a victim of incest or rape, and they want to tell women what to do with their bodies. They want to tell parents what to do when it comes to their children. I say let the parents decide and let the professionals decide.
So I'm a believer in parental autonomy and rights, but the same way, you can't let parents decide to marry off their kid at 12, right? We still have an age of consent. I don't think kids can consent to sex changes with lifelong.
They're not.
Yeah, but if it's the parents, how do you stop that? How do you combat that? If the parents are willing to sign off,
states have done.
Parents, yeah, the parents have the consent to do so, obviously. I don't know. It's not something that I think affects me in a negative way. I don't think it's something long-term that affects. Listen, if I had kids, would I want them to have that surgery? I would want to wait at least till they went through puberty. That would be my personal opinion, but that would be my kids. And I don't want to tell other parents what to do. I guess that's...
We do. There is a limit to parental autonomy, and everyone acknowledges that.
There is. You can't let them do drugs. You can't let them do hard drugs, and you can't let them commit crimes.
You can't let them get a tattoo before a certain age in half these states.
If they wanted to put the age at 16, for example, I'm not sure I would have a serious problem with that. But I think there are way too many attacks on the transgender community. I had a debate with Riley Gaines about this. She's literally made a living. I was on Pierce Morgan debating her.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, she's literally, and my point is this, okay? It's a good civil conversation to have this conversation and maybe meet somewhere in the middle. But the problem I have is I think there are a lot more prevalent things that are harming our children, like gun control, for example, gun violence, the second leading cause in death in kids. And I never hear people like Riley Gaines or people on the far right want to talk about that. They'll talk about thoughts and prayers, and they'll talk about how they care so much about women and women's rights, yet they support an adjudicated, liable sexual abuser. To me, it's just hypocrisy at its finest.
She says she's a Christian.
Yeah, to me, it's just hypocrisy. Brad, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Sure, but I guess think people can be hypocrites doesn't make them wrong about any given issue. So like the fact that there are worse issues, I agree with you that kids dying from gun violence is more widespread and urgent than kids being harmed by sex changes. And
why won't the Republican Party talk about that? Why do they constantly talk about transgenderism and transgenders and drag queens? Why don't they talk about those other issues? I'm not saying you can't.
Can be bad, and two things can be bad at the same time, and just bringing up other random bad things to like what it's just whataboutism.
No, but I don't think there's. But respectfully, I don't think there's any comparison between transgenders in sports and how it affects people compared to gun violence in this country, healthcare in this country. There's so many more things.
Like literally everyone agrees gun violence is bad, whereas until very recently, Democrats lined up behind the idea that biological males should be able to compete in women's sports.
How many Democrats believe that that are in office right now?
Are you talking about electeds or polling? Because polling actually would already disagree. But
I don't.
Well, Charlie, let me interrupt. Charlie Kirk didn't agree. He said that gun violence is okay, that a certain amount of people may have to get killed in order to sustain our Second Amendment rights.
He did say that.
Well, I think that's actually kind of a caricature of what he said, but I don't care. I don't co-sign everything Charlie Kirk ever said. I didn't say that.
He said that some people may need to be killed.
That, but
he did say
but going back to the trans thing.
What he was saying was that if you're going to have guns in a society, there will be gun deaths. That's basically just a fact. Same way if you have cars, you will have deaths from.
You propose that everybody is against gun violence, and I don't agree. That's not accurate.
Everyone is against people being murdered. Yeah, they don't agree that gun control will make us safer. That's the disagreement.
Going back to the transgender discussion, can you name me one Democrat elected official in office right now, policy-wise, that thinks that transgender women should be competing with women on the playing field?
Oh, I mean, that was the position of the Biden administration for most of his presidency.
No, the position of the Biden administration was to leave it up to the schools in the states. That was not their position. In fact, they never gave their position on it. That's factually inaccurate. What they did was they wanted to leave it up to the schools and the states to make that decision. That doesn't mean they were pro-transgender.
They don't want to enforce Title IX, and they don't want to actually have female sports be for females.
What they did was they left it up to the states, though. My question to you was, can you name me a Democrat official policy-wise that wants to have transgender women competing with women on the playing field? Because I would respectfully disagree with you.
Well,
the overwhelming majority of Democrats do not believe that.
There are, I think, over a dozen, maybe 15 blue states that allow this at the state and local level, and their governors and Democratic legislators are the ones who support this.
Okay, well, I would want to hear from one Democrat that believes that, because I don't.
And Title IX is discrimination. So I don't know.
Title IX requires female-only sports to be provided.
That's a loose.
No, that's a direct reading of Title. That the whole point was that schools have to offer a female sports division if they offer a male sports.
Right, that's
the original basis of Title
IX. Maybe we're digressing a little bit, Brad. But
we got the weeds a little bit.
But I guess the point that I try to make is, when it comes to a Riley Gaines, for example, I'm not talking about you. Going back to the argument that I made with her, she's made millions of dollars making speeches for the last 3 years, the same speech, saying how horrible it is that transgenders are on the same playing field as women. By the way, I don't think that transgender women should be competing with women on the playing field as well. I've said that on national television. However, this is not a top 10 or a top 20 issue. And MAGA Republicans continue to obsess and talk about
red meat.
When there's far more important.
See how the Democrats enabled that by only very recently evolving any of their positions on this. I mean, Kamala Harris was on record on all of these issues for years, taking the most radical stances imaginable, saying that illegal immigrants and prisoners should get taxpayer-funded sex change surgeries just because
And what happened in the end, Brad? Let me ask you, because what happened in the end is when they started asking her about that, when she was running for president, you know what she said? She said, "I evolved." She said, "I learned something that I believe 20 years ago I may not necessarily
follow the law."
I prosecuted people for marijuana, but now marijuana is legal.
Let's
That's
see,
what she
let's
said.
see. Let's see if that affected people. Brad, do you know how many people behind bars and the taxpayers paid for their transgender surgery? You know how many?
The number? No.
Okay,
Off the top of my head.
the number's zero. Okay, so
Well, that's not true. That's not
okay,
true.
well, if you can
Look, you can research it.
you can
I will
research it.
absolutely.
As far as I know, the taxpayers haven't paid for anybody behind bars to have transgender surgery, and it goes back to what I said earlier. What are the issues that are really affecting all Americans? That's not it. That's not the issue.
You don't understand that when a politician, a Democratic politician, defends or is mum about insane ideas, it tells the average voter that this person can't be trusted. Even
That's
if it's
that's the entire Republican Party today.
we're talking about the Democratic Party. You just
What are some crazy things that you think? Okay, you talked about the transgender thing that Kamala once said, which, by the way,
it was her entire career for decades. Was doubling down on the most radical positions imaginable on these issues.
Okay, well, give me some other radical positions of Kamala Harris.
I disagree with that.
You think are radical. I'm just curious, just to know, like, what else would you consider radical?
Defending child sex changes, all of everything.
Well, we just talked about that, and obviously you disagree with
against that once. That was the Biden administration's position in depth. That is wonderful, should be celebrated and defended.
Okay, well, I don't think they said it. I don't remember them saying that it should have been celebrated.
Actually Google Dylan Mulvaney being invited to the White House to meet with President Biden to talk about the celebration of this. Yeah.
Dylan Mulvaney isn't Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. We were specifically
they invited Dylan to the White House to talk about the importance of celebrating and defending kids' access to these treatments.
But you're connecting the dots there. You're connecting the dots.
They did a White House event with the trans activists talking about this.
Okay, but let's get off that issue for a moment, because you said she had a lot of radical positions. Like, what else would you consider about Kamala Harris that was quote unquote radical?
Honestly, it's been a while since the campaign, but when you look back at her career in California, there's all sorts of problematic stuff there. If you're talking about the Biden administration, I think a lot of their ideas about DEI that they embedded are deeply controversial. Many Americans would disagree with. But I don't know. I'm not ready for a pop quiz.
She was a successful prosecutor, and the biggest argument she got in was over marijuana.
I'm not trying to get you in a pop quiz, Brad. I appreciate you being here and having this discussion.
You're a great guest, Brad, by the way.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, when you say that she is radical because she had so many radical things, I think it's fair for me to ask you, what did she do or say that was so radical? And when you can't name me really anything other than you disagreeing with her on her position on transgenders, I'm trying to be fair.
The administration's approach to the border was completely radical and incoherent. She's closely tied to that. She's part and parcel.
She didn't have a great plan, but how was it radical? I remember her not really having a good plan, and I would agree with you on that. But radical,
the vice president.
She wouldn't say what she wanted to do. Basically,
the vice president doesn't implement policy, though.
But she is part and parcel of Team Biden Harris. She supports and defends everything they do.
She was the border czar, quote unquote.
Yeah, Mayorkas was the border czar. She was never the. That's another right wing talking point. But I don't know. I wouldn't consider it radical.
It was a complete terrible failure and horrific policy to just catch and release, to just have the dysfunction at the border crisis so bad. Even Democrats have admitted it was totally mishandled. The New York Times did extensive coverage on the border crisis under Biden. They caught up eventually. It was an utter calamity. I think
would you say it's an utter calamity what's happening in this country now when it comes to immigration and ICE agents not identifying themselves and deporting people,
throwing people in the white vans, not identifying
all I'm saying
themselves?
Is I just want to know, would you apply that to what's going on now as well?
I think some of yes. The short answer is yes. The long answer is I think the deporting people without due process is horrendous and rendering people to El Salvadorian prisons and all sorts of stuff like that. With that, I find horrific. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I agree.
That's a great point,
and I hope that Democrats and Republicans, when Trump is in office, I don't think this is going to happen, but could come to the table and meet somewhere in the middle. That's the problem I think you would agree with Washington, D.C. today. They couldn't come in the middle when it came to this government shutdown. They can't come in and meet in the middle when it comes to anything related, for the most part, when it comes to gun control or even transgenders or anything. And I think that's that's a big issue. But anyway, Brad, before I let you go, I appreciate you coming on. It's a good discussion. By the way, if those two guys want to come on this show, they're more than welcome to, and I will gladly have a respectful debate with them if you do know them. But give out your social media and your information and how people can
check
follow
out
you.
the Brad versus Everyone podcast or my YouTube channel, Brad Palumbo.
Cool.
Yeah, you were. If you don't mind me
Appreciate that.
saying, Brad, you were a great great guest, and
Great
there was
vest.
some things.
Great vest. Is that what you
Something,
said?
yes, invested. He, there's some things we agree on, some things we did not agree on, but we sat down and we talked about it, and we did find some common ground on some issues. And I think there needs to be more of that in America. That's just my personal opinion.
I agree. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Brad. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
All right, take care. That's Brad Palumbo, everybody.
guest.
The host of Brad versus Everybody podcast. I think what my producer wants me to do is take a break now, right? Oh, no, we want to just give out the phone number. Okay,
Phone lines are packed.
That was a very, what's that? Okay, one line open. Thank you. 702-221-7283. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-221-7283. Obviously, I disagree with a lot of what Brandon said. I agree with, or Brad. I agree with some of what Brad said. At least he's somewhat consistent on what the Trump administration is doing, and I appreciate that. He was willing to do that, but obviously, I disagree with a lot of the stuff he said as well.
He was consistent on civil rights.
Yeah,
across the board.
Let's get to the calls. Let's see what you guys think. Let's start off with Brandon. Brandon is first up on PTL. Hi, Brandon.
Hello?
Yes. Hi, Brandon. Go right ahead.
Okay, is that first, before I speak, what is this subject of your topic today? Then I can speak more. Sorry, because
sure. We were talking about Brian Shapiro's dating life. That was the topic of the show today.
We want to know why he can't find his soulmate.
Yeah,
we're kidding with you, Brandon.
I'm kidding, Brandon. We were talking about transgenders. We were obviously talking about the two people at the Tennessee State college campus. I thought it was incitement what they did. He thought they were just exercising their First Amendment rights. The college, the university disagrees, saying that they needed a permit to be able to do what they did. Therefore, as Leonard said, so they would have more safety, more security there, and they did not apply for a permit, meaning they shouldn't have been there to begin with. That's what we've been talking about.
Oh, so, well, is that my short thing on it is that whoever is wrong about transgender thing is that think it's a bunch of baloney. I'm not talking about the transgender. I'm just saying what the university is saying.
Well, no, the transgender topic had nothing to do with the college university topic. We got into a little.
Yeah, we digressed into.
We got into a little bit of a transgender conversation with him on that, and the point that I try to make to these MAGA Republicans, because they seem to be obsessed with transgenders, is this. That is not a number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 issue. It's not even a top 20 issue, okay? There are very few college Division I athletes that are transgender. Yes, I agree. If you're a transgender woman, you should not be competing with women on the playing field. But last I checked, nobody has lost their life because of it. Okay, nobody's in the hospital, in intensive care because of it. But they don't want to talk about healthcare. They don't want to talk about gun control, and they don't want to talk about all those in this country that are suffering, living paycheck to paycheck, while they're going to be taking 15 million people off of Medicaid, which is far more important than getting some transgender off of the volleyball court. But they want to talk about these issues or DEI BS instead of talking about the real issues that are facing the American people. And this is the entire MAGA Republican Party today.
Is that, and I agree with you, especially on is that healthcare issue.
Yeah, no question.
Well, Brad was, and Brian, I was going to say, Brad was bringing up the point, saying he feels like you should go on a public college, any sign you want, and you could say anything in First Amendment. Well, the thing is, you can bring any sign you want, but you personally are responsible for what happens next. Are you not?
And the police and law enforcement and security, you were off. It's your job to protect the public. Now, somebody can go on a public sidewalk and say, I hate white people or I hate black people. But then if the gathering groups around that individual, the police sometimes will be called out because they want to make sure that nothing happens. Nobody gets hurt. This was not a riot that took place at Tennessee State University. I disagree with what Brad said. This was not a riot. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was physically assaulted. Yes, if the worst thing that happened there is somebody's sign was ripped up, then guess what? That's not a riot. I don't condone somebody ripping up a sign. I think that in order for it to be a misdemeanor, It would have to be a property that is probably worth more than 50 cents.
No, it can be anything, or you could even call that assault because you ripped up your property.
Yeah.
But he said, oh, why was no one arrested? How come not? Well, because you have to want to charge the other person.
Right.
And in all likelihood, they just wanted to leave, and that's what they left.
All these bozos wanted to do was to, get on social media and get clicks and make money.
That's exactly, in my opinion.
And he brought up this other so-called journalist who is not a journalist, by the way, Cam Rigby did this show, Higby or whatever the hell his name is. And, I just destroyed his argument, and he turned out to be a complete fool. If you chase around Antifa across the country with your mace and antagonize them, I'm not condoning anybody assaulting you, but you were inciting. He's a moron.
Yeah, but Brian, if you went to Walmart and you followed someone around and you shouted at them, if something bad happened, shouldn't common sense say that that was probably, if somebody followed me around shouting at me and I have to confront them, I would. I'm not saying that I would hurt the person, but I'd have to stop it.
It reminds me of Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Oh, yeah.
The character Samuel L. Jackson and, of course, Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is trying to stir, it wasn't his fault, but the terrorists said you have to wear a sign that says, I hate the N-word in Manhattan. Now, it was his right to do that legally. That's not against the law. But that is inciting, that is incitement, and you're going to get a lot of people very upset, and sometimes bad things happen. I'm not condoning that, but you're putting yourself in that situation. That's the point that I'm trying to make. These two students, or these two idiots that went to the Tennessee State campus were trying to get clicks and trying to cause chaos. They did, unfortunately, and they did their little Newsmax interviews, and they got some free press because of it. Okay. Let's go to Kim. Kim is next up on PTL. What's up, Kim?
Trying to get clicks.
Kim, you got to lower your radio for me, okay? Okay, Kim's not lowering her radio, so we'll go to the next caller. Let's go to Chris. Chris is next up on PTL. Hey, Chris, what's going on, man? What's on your mind? Hi, Chris.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Brian.
What's up?
Hey, Brian, Leonard. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Hey, so I've been following the Trump phenomenon. It's sad. Since 2015 when he was doing this thing, and I grew up in a cult and listening to him rise up, and it's just more cultish. Where's the red line? There's no red line for these people. Trump could use 2 infants as boxing gloves, go out on the street and beat a nun to death, and his worshippers, because he doesn't have supporters, they worship him.
Well, he said that, though. He said I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they'll still support me. That is why we call it a cult.
Well, the Republican Party refuses to stand up. They refuse to do their job. They refuse to represent the people. They're allowing this man to go ahead and grab a couple of infants and start boxing with them, and they just laugh about, oh, he was just joking.
Exactly.
He wasn't serious.
I know. It's because they're using Trump because he connects with these people. Mm-hmm. But the second Trump goes away from either a heart attack or who knows what, these people are going to be like, oh crap, no one's going to buy them at a face value. They're either going to run to Russia or hide or something, because it's just getting really scary out there. I'm a white guy, and I don't feel very safe in this country.
Well, I can imagine how minorities feel in this country.
Exactly.
Some of them
I know, 100%.
Some of them are being kidnapped.
They get fucked up.
Watch language. Watch language. We can't swear.
Fuck.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I got you. Okay. I appreciate the call, my friend. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Jason. Jason is next up on PTL. Hey, Jason, what's up?
Okay, Brian. You know I'm a big fan of yours, right?
Yeah, I would like to think so. Sure.
Okay. Oh, I'm just going to let you know this was, to me, one of the most disappointing debates at all, because it shows how different life experiences are so different between each other. Number one, I just want to express, there have been a lot of hangings of young black men. So that's number one. I want you to keep that in your mind.
I know that.
Number two, hold on, let me finish.
I know. I'm just saying I know that.
Okay, HBCUs are DEI, because before then we weren't even allowed to go to college. So when he said DEI, all you had to do is say HBCUs are DEI.
Well, I made it. I don't know how much more clear I can make it with respect, Jason, than to say I believe when MAGA Republicans use the term DEI hire, it's a code word for calling somebody the N-word. I don't know how. I don't know. I'm not sure how I could make it more clear to you than that. I don't know why you would disagree.
It was
with
a
me
terrific debate, Brian.
Hold on. You're not. Hold on. Hear my perspective, and then you can disagree or agree.
I did.
But I'm giving you the biggest point of all. The reason why there was so much anarchy on that campus is because, could you imagine? First of all, Dylan Roof went down. The hangers are going around. We're watching what MAGA's doing, and these two come on a black campus to incite. So we're thinking, if they come and create cliques, what's going to happen next?
Jason,
it could be another.
Jason.
Hold on.
Here's what, Jason, I'm not hanging up on you. I want you to continue to speak, but here's why I'm getting frustrated. Everything you said, I said. I said that they were there for clicks and it could incite violence. Everything that you've said, I've said. So what do you disagree with me on?
It was a terrific debate.
And what I'm saying is that the kids, the way they acted was out of fear of thinking that...
I defended them.
No, but I'm saying that he's saying that we're not allowed to protest because they're sitting there. We're looking at them as you trying to bring violence towards us.
Okay, but that's the point that Brian was. That's the exact point.
The entire debate, I was making that point, and I was defending them, and I said it wasn't a riot, and they had the right to speak their mind, and that was their First Amendment right. Everything you've said, I've said. I don't understand what you disagree with me on.
Well, what I'm saying is these kids are fearful of the.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. Jason, what do you disagree with me on?
That's why they were acting like that, because of fear. Fear was the number one reason.
Well, you don't. I mean, you're speculating, and that's a subject. Jason, let me just say something to you, please. Give me a minute. That was. I've been here a few months, and I've been here for a couple of debates, and in my opinion, that was one of the best debates that Pushing the Limits has ever had, because we had a person who was completely on the opposite, and during the discussion, we found some common ground. Do you not think that's a good debate?
No, I don't think that was a great part about it. But I'm talking about that. Those two are going to keep going to HBCUs, and that guy's giving carte blanche to try to incite some kind of violence.
So he was in the wrong.
Okay, but I still, Jason, I'm still trying to understand what you disagree with me on. Like, I don't understand. What do you disagree with me on?
Or what I was disagreeing was that I didn't see the point of the emergency that we feel, that there's a fear that they're trying to attack us.
Well, let me respond to that. I somewhat hold on, Jason. Hold on, Jason. Hold on, Jason. Hang on. Okay. This is where we might disagree a little bit. I somewhat disagree with you on that. Here's why. You have hundreds of black students there. You have two geeky-looking white guys there. I don't personally believe, and again, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong. We both don't know for sure. I don't believe that those hundreds of black students felt scared as much as offended. I don't think they were scared that two geeky-looking white dudes.
They were pissed.
I think they were angry, Jason. I don't think they were scared. You know who was scared? Black police officers on January 6th. They were scared. I don't think hundreds of black students and two geeky-looking white guys wearing MAGA hats scared them. So I respectfully disagree with you.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I'm looking at the bigger picture right then and there. Just think about it. If you're in a place where all you see is white people all day long, and then all of a sudden two black people on, that alerts you. That puts your mind on something different. Oh, what's going on? And then you see police come, campus police on. So now you're thinking, okay.
I understand what you're saying. He's talking about them walking around in fear, but that was not the case.
Okay,
that was not the case, Jason.
Jason, I appreciate your call. I don't necessarily think we disagree on anything. All the points you made, am I wrong? I was making those same points in the debate, but no, I disagree with you. When you have 200 or 300 or 400 black students and two geeky-looking white guys wearing MAGA hats, I don't believe any of those black students were scared. I think they were angry and rightfully so.
They chased them off. They ripped up their sign and they chased them off. I don't think it was out of fear.
No, they weren't scared, I don't believe, Jason. I disagree with you on that. I think we agree on everything else, so I don't know why you're angry at me. I don't know why. I mean, I'm defending the students. I'm going after these two idiots that were wearing the MAGA hats that were clearly inciting. They didn't ask for a permit. I mean, I agree with you. I don't
well, he led with he didn't like the debate, which I completely disagree. I would admit if something was off or didn't go right.
He's entitled to his opinion, but it's not going to stop me from doing what I do. Let's go to Patrick. Patrick is next up on PTL. What's up, Patrick?
Hi, Patrick. How you doing, guys?
What's up?
Yeah, Patrick.
You know, great stuff. Yeah, you know, it's nice to see common ground. It really is. You know, there's so much of this debate that's just so one-sided. But you know, growing up in North Idaho, we had our big rallies up here in the late '80s, all the way through the '90s. and we'd have our annual event up here, right, where the bootsteppers would have their parade.
Yep.
They would sue the city for not giving them permits when they filled out their permit structures wrong, because the main thing that you have to have when you have a big rally is porta potties and security.
Correct. Right? I don't know about the porta potties, but definitely the security.
Oh, for sure.
It has to get pretty big before porta potties.
Sanitation is.
Listen, I dealt with this 2 weeks ago. If you guys remember, I tried to make this point. I'm part of the UNF America tour. 15 of us traveled to Colorado State. We had to get a permit. And by the way, the Turning Point people were actually on our side. They said, yeah, give them the permit. And Colorado State gave us the permit.
The permits are for everyone's safety.
Yeah, and
it's for everyone's safety.
And by the way, this is a liberal campus. Colorado State is very liberal, and we still had to get a permit. So what this guy was saying about, well, you shouldn't have to ask for a permit.
And they weren't down there just chit-chatting with people and going in, which you can do. You can go talk to students, but that is not what they were doing. They were holding provocative signs and should have expected something to happen.
And what we as citizens have the right to do is to counter protest. We have the right to go down when we have bootsteppers in the park and tell them, hey, you know what? Go somewhere else. Go back under the rock from which you came. Okay, we don't accept that in this community. Okay, we can't. The tearing of the signs. Okay, sorry.
Listen,
whatever.
I don't listen to me. Let me tell you something. I don't condone ripping up a sign. But I'll tell you this, I understand. I understand why those students were angry when you have two MAGA idiots showing up there without a permit. And make no mistake about it, I'm going to repeat what I just said. And for those of you MAGA morons out there that disagree with me, you have the right to do that.
They can be mad.
But let me tell you something. DEI hire, to me, is the MAGA code word for calling somebody the N-word. I really, truly believe that. And if you really want to talk about DEI hires, as I mentioned, it's 90% of the Trump administration. You show up on a predominantly black campus with a DEI sign, that's the kind of reaction you're going to get. And by the way, I'm going to commend a lot of those students as well. Nobody physically assaulted anybody. My understanding, nobody committed any felonies. The worst thing that I saw a student did was rip up a sign. And if that's the worst thing that they do, then I think they did just okay. All right, they're fine. And I understand why they were upset. Let's go to Peter. Peter is next up on PTL. What's up, Peter?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Leonard.
Hi, Peter. It's on your
running for governor.
That's 43.
Hey, Brian, a while ago I called and asked you what shows, if any, you wanted to do besides Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that primarily you didn't want to really do anything because it would require travel and for you to be away from the studio. Besides the awesome addition of Leonard, what has changed since then? And has the Kirk tragedy influenced you one way or the other?
That's one of the best questions I've had in a long time. And it's a good question. Going out to Colorado State, and after what happened to Charlie Kirk, and going out to Colorado State and meeting a lot of 20-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 21-year-olds that knew who I was, that saw me on TV, that listened to my show, it was like, you never think that when you're doing a radio show in Las Vegas. I don't really take a step back, and it really made me realize that I need to get out there more. So there are a couple podcasts that I'm going to be doing, 2 really big podcasts. We're still trying to nail down a date. One of the shows that I've always wanted to do is the PBD podcast. I've gotten into it with, why am I forgetting his name? The guy who I called Jersey Shore on Piers Morgan. He's like I call him the PBD side piece. I don't remember his name. I called him Jersey Shore. So Patrick Bet-David has invited me on the show in the past, and I said I really didn't want to fly out there, but I am going to do it. We're just trying to set up a day that will work. Another show that I've always wanted to do is the Tim Pool show. I disagree with Tim Pool on everything. And I will take my hat off live on the air if he takes off his beanie. I'm going to be flying out there eventually. We're trying to pick a day. So I'm going to be doing the PBD podcast, and I'm going to be doing the Tim Pool podcast. Why? First of all, they have huge followers. They have a huge following. So those are 2 shows that I'm going to do. So what changed? Yes, you're right. What happened to Charlie Kirk is a part of it. being a part of the UNF America tour and taking a trip a few weeks ago to Colorado State made me realize that I need to do more stuff like that. Number one, it's good content for the show. Number two, it's great to meet the listeners out there. And I met some students out there, and, you know, everyone's like, oh, Brian, you got a lot of old people that listen to your show. No, that's not true. I have a lot of young people that listen to the show as well. So that's the best way I can answer that question. That definitely changed me a little bit.
And not speaking for you, but I think Brian found out that he could expand his influence. He could expand his viewership. He could have a louder, bigger voice in this social media sphere.
And by the way, Joan on the YouTube chat said Vinny is the person I'm talking about.
Vinny.
Yes, I debated Vinny on Pierce Morgan, and we got into it, and I want to sit right next to him because every time he'd say it to my face, and I will say it to his face. I will call him.
Did he say, we got a situation here?
Yeah, I will call him an idiot to his face, and if he wants to try to assault me, he can do that. But I have agreed to travel to those places, and we're just trying to nail down a time and a day that'll work for them, and I'm happy to do it. So that's what kind of changed for me a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Good
Appreciate
question.
It. Looking forward to everything.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. That's a great question. It's a great question that you asked, and yeah.
And no, we didn't prep Peter with that question.
No, it's a really good question.
That was spontaneous.
Yep. Let's go to Scott. Scott is next up on PTL. What's going on, Scott? Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind today? Hi, Scott. Go right ahead.
Hey, how are you? I'm going for a colonoscopy and an endoscopy tomorrow morning, so I was.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, thank you. I think diarrhea Don. Thank you. Diarrhea diaper Don needs a colonoscopy too, as well as America. But I wanted to talk about the left versus the right real quick. Real quick. I'm actually watching you on YouTube for a change. I think the left, we burn buildings, cars, and loot, and we rip up signs, while the left goes into the right goes into places and they commit mass murder. So not saying that both are right or wrong, but
Yeah, but let's be clear.
It is what it is.
But hold on, let's be very clear here. Yes, you're right. There is violence that can happen and has happened on both sides of the aisle. However, if you look at the actual non-biased statistics, there are 3 times more likely to be political violence from the right than the left.
That's right. A fact.
And that's not an opinion, that's a fact, and people can look up those stats if they would like to. But it's nauseating to hear Republicans say, all the political violence is from the left, when literally the president of the United States, when he was campaigning, said, I'd like to rough up that guy. If you rough up that guy, I'll pay for your legal fees. I mean, it's just, it's so ridiculous.
And he's talking about years and years ago, and he's talking about one specific incident.
Right.
But overall, that is not the correct picture.
Yep.
Let me say one more thing. Every libertarian I ever heard of sounds like a closet Republican to me.
Well,
I never heard of a libertarian.
There's a lot of things they
can be pretty center sometimes.
There's a lot of things I could say about Brad, my opinions, but one thing I cannot say about him is that he is in the closet. So I will not say that. He is openly
He was professional. He was a gentleman. We engaged in conversation.
Yep.
I thought it was
we disagree on stuff, but that's okay. I welcome that. 702-221-7283. And by the way, I'm going to use the term idiot. For the idiots out there that say, Brian, you don't want to have civil debate. I have civil debates on this show all the time. When somebody calls up and they said something really stupid, I call them out on it. That's all.
In fact, if a MAGA caller calls in and they were to act like Brad,
I wouldn't call him a name. Absolutely not.
We would have discourse with them. We would speak to them.
Let's go to Ray. Ray is next. What's up, Ray? Hi, Ray. Go right ahead.
Do you wear jeans to church?
I'm sorry, what? Come again? Ray?
Do you wear jeans to church?
I don't go to church, Ray.
You should.
Why? Why should I go to church, Ray? Tell me why.
Because you're immoral and you're giving in to this.
Why am I immoral? Okay, Ray, so try to be serious for a moment. I know it's really, this is the highlight of your day to try to
back it up. Let him back it up.
Hold on, Ray. What have I said on this show that would lead you to believe that I am immoral?
You support the trans agenda.
Hold on a second. So what's the trans agenda? What would you consider? What is the trans agenda? What do I support? Tell me, Ray.
Letting these creatures into children's.
Okay, so first of all, you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. First of all, they're not creatures; they're human beings, you clown. And second of all, if you have such a problem with people going into teenage girls' locker rooms, then why the hell would you support Donald Trump, who bragged on the Howard Stern show about going into teenage locker rooms in a sexual way? Ray, Why would you support somebody like that? Do you have a problem with Donald Trump going into teenage girls' locker rooms? You creature buffoon.
First of all, how you know
Because he did. Hold on a second. Hey, Ray, listen to me. I'll repeat it again, you dumb idiot. See, this is why I call people names.
He did.
Ray, he bragged about doing it himself on the Howard Stern show, you stupid ass. What is the... Now, I go back to my... No, be quiet for a second. Now I go back to my original question. You said I'm immoral because I support the transgender agenda. What is the agenda? And by the way, the agenda is not anybody to go into anybody's locker rooms, okay? So I don't agree with that, okay? So you're wrong about that. I don't believe that if you're a transgender woman or identify as a transgender woman, that you should be allowed to go into a locker room with other women. So you're wrong about that. So I ask you once again, why am I immoral? And what have I said on this show that's immoral? You failed miserably in that attempt. By the way, you're the one that talks about morals and you support the adjudicated sexual abuser. But go ahead. What else have I said on this show that's immoral? You haven't made one point yet. Go ahead.
Well, there's a guy yesterday who told you, he says before you need to go to confession. I agree with him.
I don't go to church and I'm not a religious person. And just because you're not a religious person, just because that's your opinion, you bozo. Hold on a second. Just because I don't go to church or just because I don't go to confession doesn't mean I'm an immoral person, you dumbass. You call into the show and you say you could only be moral if you go to church. That makes you an idiot. You're an idiot. So I ask again, give me a reason why I'm immoral. Just because I don't go to church or I'm not religious. There's a lot of atheists out there. It doesn't mean they're immoral, dumbass. So give me another reason. Why am I immoral, dummy?
Do you support keeping the border closed?
Oh my God,
well. You really are a moron. You really are a moron. I'll answer. I'll answer his question.
He's a judgmental person, and how can you be a Christian and be judgmental?
He's not.
How can you be a Christian and not be your brother's keeper and love thy neighbor? You make no sense.
Okay, no. You shut up. I'm going to explain because you asked me a question.
You shut up.
Okay, pot him down. No, that's not how it works. You see, I run a radio show here.
Yeah, he called your show.
If I want you to shut up, we will pod you down. You can do your own creature radio show if you like. So I'm going to answer your question. Okay, first of all, just because you don't go to church doesn't mean you're immoral. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. The transgender agenda, as you put it, is not if you're trans to be able to go into any locker room you want to. In fact, there are transgender people that actually disagree with that, and I happen to be one of those people.
We support their right to be transgender.
And the third thing that he just said, you asked me a question.
Confession.
Yeah. Just because I don't go to confession, that makes you immoral? Who did you vote for, dumbass? Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Oh, we know who he voted for.
Who did you vote for, dummy?
I voted for Trump.
Yeah, okay. So let me ask you a question.
Surprise there.
So let me ask you a question. Would you consider it immoral to call somebody who happened to be a POW to say you don't respect somebody because they're a POW? Is that immoral?
It's off balance.
Oh, it's off balance, but it's not immoral. Is it immoral for someone to attack Gold Star families? Is it immoral for someone to attack women on looks? Is it immoral for someone to dodge the military multiple times? Is it immoral to not want black people to live in your places, apartments that you own in New York City? Huh? Is it immoral to lie about the 2020 election? Is it immoral to have unprotected sex with a porn star a week after Melania has Barron? Is it immoral to cheat on every single woman that you've ever had?
Is it immoral to worship an immoral person? That's a good question. That's an easy one to answer.
Yeah, you're immoral. But all those questions that I just asked, would you say that stuff is immoral? Is it? Yes or no?
Did Donald Trump
Don't answer the question with a question. Answer the question, you dope.
Can you worship an immoral person? If you're a Christian.
That's why he goes to confession so he can improve.
He does not go.
Yeah, but
Ray, you're not
now
serious.
you're qualifying. You don't know.
Hold on a second. So Ray, you're obviously not a serious person.
No, he's just throwing around.
The highlight of your day was to call into the show and get your rocks off. Exactly. By the way, that's the noise. That's the noise that
another shady MAGA.
I'm done. Pot him down. Ray, that sounded like you just pleasured yourself to me, and that's the sound that he makes when he climaxes to my poster every night before he goes to sleep. Ray, you're not a serious person. You're just a creature. You're a MAGA creature.
Yeah, it's
Thank
shady
you for the
MAGA
call.
would made no sense.
Let's go to Nicole. Nicole is next up on PTL. What's up, Nicole?
Hey, Brian.
What's going on?
Hey, I just had some comments to say about that officer moron sitting between you and Leonard. I don't agree. It seems as though he's trying to make a false comparison between having a riot and someone ripping up paper from being antagonized. I don't agree. I mean, there were no rubber bullets flying. Okay, no one's trash can set on fire. No cops were hit with a brick. I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but I get it. You know, it's tearing up a sign may not be the classy thing to do. I get it. You lose your emotions. But guess what? If I had to choose between my sign being tore up or hit in the face, guess what? Tear up my sign. Okay? They went there and antagonized the college, and you seem to have more of a problem with the response than the antagonist.
Listen, guys have more of a problem with somebody ripping up a sign than those who beat police officers on January 6th. I guarantee you he wasn't all over the place on radio shows, complaining that Donald Trump pardoned those people, but he's more up in arms when a bunch of black people don't want two MAGA idiots at their university. I mean, it's a joke. This comes down to race. That's really what it comes down to.
She was right. He conflated a bunch of issues. He went from very serious to not so serious and kind of lumped them all together.
It's ridiculous. I mean, who the hell is he to say how we should respond to something negative? Quite frankly, okay, I think that he's a closet racist. That's what I think. I think he's a disingenuous closet racist. That's what I think he is.
Well,
the First Amendment allows you to have your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right, my dear. I'm not saying necessarily you're wrong. We'll let the listeners decide. Let's go to Andrew. Andrew is next up on PTL. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, Brian. How you doing today?
Good.
So I had because you and I are like-minded, and I have a question to ask you.
Okay.
So you know how the shortest government shutdown, I think, was 35 days?
Yep.
So do you think this is going to be a long period? Because I think it's going to be all the way to at least beginning of November is when we're actually going to come to deals, or the beginning of December.
I think you're right. I tend to agree with you. I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. This is exactly what Donald Trump wanted. He wanted to fire a bunch of people with no accountability. It's a perfect place for him to do so. I don't think, luckily, I don't think the Democrats are going to give in, and I don't think they should. So I tend to agree with you. I think it's going to happen probably, it'll be over maybe November, maybe December, but I don't think we're getting out of this in October. And there's a lot of people that are not going to be getting their paychecks. Let's go to Mary. Mary is next up on PTL. Hi, Mary.
Oh, hi. Are you talking to me?
Yes, go right ahead.
You're on, Mary.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying that your guest was giving blatant lies about transgender and risk for suicide. I trained as a psychiatric MP, and what he said about transgender and risk for suicide is a blatant lie. That's untreated kids with gender dysphoria. That's one of the highest risks for suicide in kids. And kids that are not supported by their family and parents, when we see them in the air, that's like huge. And for him to just sit there and say that it isn't, that's completely unfounded. And I was just disgusted by that.
Well, I tried to bring that up. Yeah, go ahead.
But the other thing, too, is that the cause, having kids forestall puberty doesn't mean that they won't have puberty if, in fact, they do decide to go forward with it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I'm doing the changes of puberty. If it does happen for a kid that truly is transgender, is much harder. The American Psychiatric Association has done a ton of studies and research on transgender and the effects on puberty. They've come out with
well, that's why Mary, we're up against the clock, Mary. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but Mary, that's why I brought that up, because there's a lot of children out there, sadly, that have ended their own lives because of gender dysphoria, but MAGA Republicans don't want to talk about that. And by the way, there are studies that show that with these children, it's not true that the suicide rate, there's no evidence to prove that if you have transgender surgery, you're less likely to take your own life. That was a mischaracterization of the facts that that Brad brought up. So I'm glad you shared that with us. Dolores is next up on PTL. Hey, Dolores, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind? Hi, Dolores. Go right ahead.
Hi, Dolores. It's me.
Yep, go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to touch up on that DEI that's going around real strong. I worked at Mountain Bell from 71 to 77,
At one time during that time I was there, I was called into the office. I'm a Chicana from Arizona, and they asked me if I knew any other Mexicans or blacks that would be interested in working because they were ready to get fined or something. Because back in the day when DEI started, or even before then, you are supposed to hire so much of so many different types, diverse people, okay?
Right.
And they weren't doing that. They weren't doing that. When they went to check, they saw, oh my God, you guys are way behind, along with 100 other corporations.
Yeah.
So they specified they were only hiring minority people, no matter who it was. I don't know how it went because they never did tell me anything. I don't know. But DEI was mainly, I'm going to tell you this, it was mainly for 50% of the white women to get in there and 50% of the others to get in there.
Yeah,
So
well,
I
Trump
don't
did
even
away
know
with it.
why. Huh?
Trump did away with DEI. That's why he did away with it, so that it wouldn't be fair.
Well, it wasn't fair to begin with, and that's why they had to do it, because they weren't hiring.
Oh, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. I agree completely.
And
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm sorry to cut you off. We are running out of time here, and I want to get to
We're in
YouTube
rapid
Super
fire.
Chat. I don't disagree with you at all, my dear. I'm with you 150%. Dying Breed Garage says, compare Kamala Harris's resume to Trump. She is clearly more accomplished by far. This guy is a clown. Well, obviously, I agree with you there. As far as Kamala Harris being far more accomplished, I agree with you. Immortal Suspects, thank you for your support. Says, thank God we have Leonard there to fact check this guy with the law. Leonard is the perfect compliment to you on your show, Brian. Thank you both. Well, thank you, Immortal.
Maybe you did find your soulmate.
My friend Darcy Merritt, who is such a sweetheart and such a great friend, says, oh my God, I'm multitasking and had to rewind to listen to this douche. My blood is boiling. I'm behind, but my God, with a straight face and chest out, this disturbing sculpture face is upsetting. I want to jump through my laptop. Don't jump through your laptop, Darcy. I need you as a friend. Please don't do that.
What'd you say? Disturbing sculpture face?
Yeah, sculpture face. Roland says, would he consider teaching religion in schools, indoctrination? Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say yes. Kim says, doctors make decisions along with parents. Psychiatric doctors, age can vary. I agree with you, Kim, 150% totally on that one as well. Lori says, Michael Fanone had Jolly on his show, and he said that once Trump is gone, the Heritage Foundation will still be around to harm us. Be aware of it. I like Jolly. He's awesome. We got to get Jolly on the show, by the way. I didn't know Michael Fanone did a show. He's the officer.
I would love to go on with him. And,
I was on with Michael Fanone and Don Lemon a few weeks ago.
Michael Fanone does not play around.
Yeah,
he says it straight.
No, Fanone's awesome. I did Don Lemon's show with him. And I'd like to get Fanone on the program. Maybe I got to hit up Don.
Oh, I would love to talk to him.
Yeah.
We'd have a lot to talk about.
There is. So for those of you that are on hold, we'll get back to some more phone calls tomorrow. I do have all due respect to Leonard. He's a good-looking guy. But guess who's co-hosting with me tomorrow?
Nicole?
Yeah, Nicole Mitchell. She's in town again, and
I am happy to lose to Nicole.
She just can't get enough of me. So she's
so smart.
She's awesome. So she's gonna be co-hosting with me tomorrow. She'll be in the hot seat. She'll be in your chair. I believe the Mooch, Anthony Scaramucci, is going to be joining us on the show tomorrow. So as everybody knows, this is an independently owned radio show. What does that mean? It means I don't have a boss. It means I'm my own boss. It means we rely on people like you to help support what we are doing. So what can you do to help support us besides the YouTube Super Chat? You'll see the screen in the upper left-hand corner if you're watching on YouTube. That takes you straight to my website, which is pushingthelimits.live. You can make monthly donations on there, $5, $10, $20 a month, whatever you can afford, we greatly appreciate. We also sell PTL merchandise on there, mugs, beanies, not Tim Pool beanies. We don't sell those. Shirts, hats, you name it, we sell them on there. That would be fun, by the way. I'm going to tell Tim on his show.
You should have a see-through.
Yeah, I'm going to tell Tim, I'll take off my hat if you take off yours.
He won't do it.
I'll ask him. But anyway, check us out there, pushingthelimits.live. It's an ever so growing show. And we have such a great community of people. You know, Adam Mockler, we interviewed Adam Mockler yesterday. That was great.
He put a lot of clips online.
The Mooch. We've had Joe Walsh on the show this week. We're very lucky. We have some very great people that join this show on a regular basis. And I'm really Really appreciative.
Scaramucci's big. I'll be watching.
Yeah. Also, Jackson's Bar and Grill. They're a great sponsor of this radio show. And here's what's great. I went to the Vegas Golden Knights game yesterday. It's still preseason, but during the regular season, they have this pass the puck contest where if you hit a 4 of a kind and before you get a puck, and then if by the end of the period, if you're the only one with the puck, you win free slot play. So it's kind of a cool game they got going there. It's a great place to watch a Vegas Golden Knights game. Great food, great atmosphere.
We got to get over there one night for that.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Leonard, it's been fun.
It was great. Great week.
I will catch you up on the show next Tuesday, right? You'll be here, and we'll do it all over again. Leonard, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, of course. And thank you all for being here as well.
Numchuck, great job. Lots of compliments in the live chat.
Don't give him too much.
Well, they were in the live chat. There was nothing but compliments.
I'm just kidding. Numchuck does a good job. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will see you tomorrow with the beautiful and lovely Nicole Mitchell. Same time, same place. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a wonderful
Have a good
day.
week.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a